So I don't know his view yet on Vault 7. I just know it comes out of the CIA as to show what criminal elements the deep state are doing, and as a direct counter to the criminal deep state trying to block this America agenda and our president, and the fact they tried to set the president up as a Russian. That's all in here. They're the ones doing it, and literally in trucks outside trying to spoof Trump's IPs. And so Congress has seen through it. Fox News has seen through it. I think we're seeing a collapse of the old establishment, this criminal globalist system right now. I'm very euphoric, but we'll see if Pieczenik concurs. Dr. Pieczenik, thanks for joining us. StevePieczenik.com, co-author with Tom Clancy, of course, as well. What do you make of all this?
Well, as I told you before, and for some time now, we have had a civilian military confrontation in the intelligence community. Much of what you're seeing now in Vault 7, which is a release of over 9,000 pieces of information, was forewarned several months ago to me. I knew this would be a continuation of
Sure, you said more big leaks are coming if they don't back off.
Excuse me?
You said more big leaks are coming if they don't back off.
It's not just a leak. Let me put it this way, Alex. We have a far more serious issue. As I told you before, when we initiated a counter coup against Hillary, this is once again an attempt to get rid of all those people who are impairing and distracting from Trump's agendas, Roger said. But it's far more serious. This time around, the reason why these leaks were given was to simply take down the CIA. The CIA, as I've said, for the 30 years since 9/11 and elsewhere, has been out of control. It has been out of control.
And let me ask you this. Why are there so many people in the CIA that are for this? Why are there so many people in the CIA that are for this?
For what? For Vault 7?
For all this coming out.
Well, because they're good people. The CIA is not monolithic. What happened under John Brennan, what happened under Obama, this is a strict indictment of Obama and what happened with the increased surveillance of the CIA during the past 8 years and the previous 8 years under Bush Jr. And what happened, the honorable people within the CIA realized that this was a mandate that had been exceeded. In other words, this is criminal action. For the CIA to go into cyber communications, to put in, to literally...
This is leftist globalists using the CIA and NSA power to subvert the republic.
Well, let me be a little bit more expansive than that. This is not just the leftists and the globalists. This involves John D. Rockefeller, who was head of the Senate Intelligence Committee. This involves Susan Collins. This involves Mark Rubio. This involves Dianna Feinstein. This involves many people who are over the Senate Intelligence Committee who were aware of this for over 8 to 12 years and did nothing.
They allowed this criminal action.
There is no question this is a criminal action. The reason this was released by my people and others who are literally caring for the Republic and use Alex Jones as a means to get to the people of the United States was the simple fact that we can no longer maintain covert aspects to the CIA and cyber communication. One of the most important things that was released several months ago, and nobody realized it, was 0 Day, which was a film on Netflix, and Michael Flynn and General Michael Hayden was in it, and a bunch of others.
Stay there. We're back in 70 seconds. We'll keep you into the next hour with the next guest as well. I'm Alex Jones. This is the Infowar. History is happening before your eyes, and you're all part of it. Spread the word to people. Tune in right now. Infowars.com/show. The battle for the Republic is now. America wouldn't go down so easy, would it? And this is only the beginning. Dr. Steve Pieczenik, former spy master, works with a lot of agencies, to the State Department, joins us. He'll be with us 30 minutes into the next hour with, of course, another great brain, Michael Schneider. Then Dr. Jerome Corsi has major White House contacts that are giving him all the intel with breaking stories that nobody's covering because they're so big, with the corruption. Hundreds of billions stolen by Obama out of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, looting everything. I mean, it's all coming out. The data dump has begun. Now, let's go back to Dr. Steve Pieczenik. You were getting into the fact that major things are happening. Go ahead.
What this is a game changer. What's happening in effect is that our community and the intelligence community, both civilian and military, what they're interested in is warning the American public and the world that the so-called smart appliances, let's say a phone, smart TV, Samsung, Sony, even your smart car is totally vulnerable to the NSA and in particular the CIA. Now, the NSA always had the mandate for cyber command and cyber warfare. The individual and the institution that never had the command or the mandate was the CIA. It has to release its mandate or it will be prosecuted for crimes against the state. And it has already committed crimes against the state. Remember, when you and I first started, one of the reasons why I was so pleased to come on your show and to continue to be on the show was the fact that you represented the American public and you were not in any way influenced by mainstream media. The 9/11 issue was so embarrassing to our military, where they were literally bushwhacked into a war. And they were bushwhacked into a war by none other than the civilian CIA. And John Brennan was a major element, George Tenet, Peter Goss, a whole group of congressmen and senators who eventually became honorable or whatever else they did. They were criminals. In return, the intelligence community said, we no longer want to be part of a republic which dupes the American public. And that was why I was used as the mouthpiece and the individual to relate it to the American public, as long as you and I and the American people understood that the republic had to be paramount and that the individual was supreme in this republic.
Well, by the way, I don't want to brag because I've known this for a long time. It's crazy. I'm not part of any intelligence agency. I just was an American patriot resisting this tyranny. But going back 18 years ago, 15 years ago, then 12 years ago, I've now confirmed with all these folks in SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and Special Operations, their commanders would come in and say, you're to listen to Alex Jones. We can't tell you all this, but he's figured it out. I can legally tell you you're ordered to listen to that. And from deep inside all these agencies, and I wasn't even that good 15 years ago, but you were coming on then, they were ordered to listen to me. So it's not the whole agencies, but what was this ordering them to listen to me 15 years ago? What's that?
Well, what had happened, and with all due respect to you, I know you're quite modest, but the issue was that you were able to stand forth as a fighter. You were a fighter within the business of news. Now, at that time, nobody understood what the alternative media was. No one could understand how could a young man from Austin, Texas, garner such a reputation and garner a huge audience of over 18 million. When you and I kept talking, and it started with Benghazi, it started with 9/11, it was with the nonsense of Osama bin Laden, the credibility that you created within the audience and within your own narrative was so important to our intelligence community that they understood this was a venue to talk to the public. They don't need David Singer. They don't need any of their David Ignatius of the Washington Post. They don't need any of these reporters. That's why what you're seeing in the press and on TV is the death. And I've said it for a long time.
Let's talk about that when we come back in 70 seconds. You'll have the floor to talk about where we go from here, what we expect next, how the criminal elements, the deep state will strike back with Dr. Steve Pieczenik. Stay with us. I'm Alex Jones. All right, Michael Schneider's going to ride shotgun with us at the bottom of the hour. A columnist, read by millions a week. EconomicCollapseBlog.com. Hopefully we can stop that if Trump's able to turn the jobs back on, which he's doing a pretty good job of. But a lot of the globalist operations like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan admit they're trying to actually implode the economy to consolidate it, despite the fact they've seen record profits under Trump. Best small business numbers since the 1984 recovery of Reagan. That's official news. Exxon Mobil announcing hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in the next 6 years, next 4 years on the Texas and Louisiana coast. I mean, it's just daily, these huge announcements that we're open for business again, that we won't prohibit you coming here and doing things. That's what globalism is, was selling off American assets, selling off the fact that we had more than half the world's wealth 30 years ago. Dr. Steve Pieczenik's riding shotgun with us as well, co-author with Tom Clancy, filmmaker, of course, involved in a lot of different agencies and helped broker the Camp David Accords, founder of Delta Force with General Boykin and Schumacher and others. And he can seriously, he's come on and told you there's been a major war inside the government, a civil war, a deep state war. He's been saying that for several years, and now it's all over the news today. So really what's happened is, what happens now that 9,000 documents come out, or 9,000 pages, Vault 7, the largest ever publication of confidential CIA documents, that's released today, massive coverage at Infowars.com. And they admit, we're remote controlling people's cars and blowing them up. They admit yeah, we're breaking into your phones and watching and listening to you and your smart TVs. Well, that was all in the terms and service. We told you about that 15 years ago, but it's all here now. So what happens is what we've covered here becomes so mainstream, and even Fox News and CNN are forced to report it. And Obama's dumb enough to say, we're not surveilling President Trump or General Flynn, when a month ago they said they were in the news. So you're seeing that these losers are so arrogant, they think they're invincible. Obama set up this office 2 miles away from Trump saying he's going to overthrow it. And Holder says, he's coming, like he's Christ. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist like Dr. Pieczenik, but I mean, this is delusional crap. And I don't want us to be delusional either. We're in the fight of our lives, but we're getting the initiative. Trump isn't a coward. He knows what he's doing. And so this is an amazing time to be alive right now. Dr. Pieczenik, I want to go to our guest and have you go back and forth. But, I mean, what would you say this time is we're alive in right now? Then I'll ask Snyder the same question. I mean, is this not one of the most important times in U.S. history?
I told from the very beginning, since 9/11, and the fact that we continue, this is a second American Revolution. This is as clear as it becomes when the entire regime was changed legally, and it was changed thanks to you, the internet, alternative media, social media, and it was a new type of revolution. That's why the press doesn't understand it. And economically, we are changing because Brexit is breaking up. Germany is now coming to see Trump. China has to deal with Trump. Japan had to deal with Trump. And your guest will explain why the economic dimensions are even more serious. But the reason why this was dumped out again, if you want to call it another counter coup on our behalf, where we did it against Hillary, we did it against Obama. Now we're doing it so that we can bring into the forefront the issue of cyberspace and cyber command and cyber warfare. That's what my people, both civilian and military.
You said 3 years ago Snowden was a deep state deal to cut the wings of these out-of-control agencies. You've been proven right.
Correct. Well, I don't want to be right. I just want to protect the republic. I want to make sure.
I know you can't talk about a lot of secret stuff. I have a lot of sources too, but I mean, give us the feeling of how you knew 3 years ago that Snowden was actually doing this with a Patriot group and where this is going.
Because when you hear a story that's concocted as follows, Snowden broke his leg in the special forces, then he was hired by the CIA, then he was fired by the CIA, and then he was a contract officer for the CIA, then he was a contract officer for Booz Allen, and then I mean, it's so cockamamie, it's so convoluted. This is typical CIA nonsense. So when you hear a convoluted story like Osama bin Laden was killed, when in fact he was already dead and he had a renal dialysis machine and he couldn't move, but they killed him in Pakistan, in the center of the most secure area in Pakistan. That was absurd. And so people like McRaven, the SEAL teams, and all the special forces, General Dempsey, they were all compromised by a stupid narrative which couldn't be corrected. And that's why the CIA has had a real problem. I said stupidity, arrogance, and incompetence has been the triad of the CIA for years. Whereas in military intelligence, if you come up with that kind of nonsensical story, you would have been fired and court-martialed. And you saw that with Manning, and you saw that with others. So from our perspective, the more convoluted the story, the more nonsensical it is. Obama was the candidate who was the most lethal of all. Everybody thought he was sweet, intelligent, and didn't do very much. You saw how lethal he was to the entire country. And I said it from the beginning. When you have a black individual, a mulatto, whose mother was in the CIA, whose grandfather and grandmother were in the CIA, and they worked for the East-West Center under what I control, then you know you have a CIA operative who really doesn't know strategy and instead functions on tactics, on lies and deception.
So to simplify it, we have patriots from all the agencies, but mainly the Army and the military saying no to the CIA and the globalists.
Because we're trained. When we go into the military, we're trained to pledge allegiance to one thing, the Republic. We're trained to pledge allegiance to the Constitution and the Republic.
But the CIA's full of a bunch of leftists now since the 70s.
Well, the CIA was full of leftists, universalists, lesbians, gays, transgender. They don't care. Their only interest is to increase their capabilities and to violate the laws of the Constitution.
So it's a power grab.
It's more than a power grab. It's a stupid, self-destructive entity which came out of a brilliant group of individuals who are white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They came from the elite schools. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had served in World War II. And then in return, what we had was Catholics in action who were not the brightest in the world, who were totally incompetent, who never really fought in wars, who really never understood the strategy and tactics of where the Republic had to go, and instead created problems. As General Eisenhower said, the CIA has left a legacy of ashes, and this is the destruction. Now you see the punishment that's coming back again and again and again.
That's my next question, then we're going to Snyder, and then pop in. I'm going to skip the breaks so we have more time. This is such an epic time to be alive. That's what I've been told by my sources, not just you, is that if they keep pushing exponential, each data dump will become more devastating. This dwarfs anything we've seen so far by a power of 1 or 2. The next thing is going to be even more devastating. Can the globalists and other groups give up? Because they seem so desperate. I think they know they're in deep trouble. Don't they understand if they just give up, they can go into abstention, are going to be left alone? But if they keep pushing, they're going to be totally destroyed?
They understand what you're saying, but that's not the reality of what's happening. Your guest can reaffirm this. Number one, I predicted years ago Europe would break up. The simple reason wasn't that
you did. You were on here 6 years ago about de-evolution, how it was all going to happen, how we get a nationalist president, go back to the South, be the new king base, everything, it all happened.
Yes. The reason I could say that there was structural inconsistencies in the EU, when you have a very weak, incompetent country like France trying to block the rise of Germany, which by national character will always be the most powerful country in Europe, you know then it's a self-destructive move.
Because they're not even doing it for the EU. They're all fighting with each other in a power grab.
Well, not only that, there's going to be a dissolution. There's going to be currency changes. As your guest will say, you know, Britain is pulling out, but they have the pound. What you need.
So how much trouble is George W. Bush's or George Herbert Walker Bush's or John D. Rockefeller III or whatever? How much trouble is their New World Order in?
Their New World Order does not exist anymore. As a matter of fact, that
so it's already gone. They just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, the Rockefeller children, whom I know, the great-great-grandchildren, they couldn't care less. They're really not involved in money. Most of Soros is really irrelevant. All of the people that we're talking about are irrelevant. The people who are relevant are Merkel from Germany, Le Pen, a woman from France, Abe from Japan, and President Xi Jinping from China, who knows that he is an economic problem. He knows that very soon, if he does not act appropriately, we can make certain that China will have a very severe economic.
I mean, from what I've been read, I mean, in a month, couldn't we put China into a depression?
Well, China actually, you know, you're hit it right on the head. I didn't want to say it, but China is technically insolvent. Most of their companies right now are bankrupt.
And that's why they're trying to throw their weight around as just bravado.
It's also bravado. It's a distraction from the major concern that President.
Let's come back to that. Let's come back to that. Stay there, Dr. Steve Pieczenik, StevePieczenik.com. Let's bring in Michael Snyder, Economic Collapse blog, millions of readers a day, contributes to Infowars.com. You're hearing all this. What a historic time to see Trump striking back. Are they smart enough to back off now, or will they have to release the next data dump?
Well, Alex, I believe the globalists are not going to give up. In fact, they know they're in a life or death struggle, and that's what we need to understand, because a lot of people out there, they thought, well, Trump got elected, now we have a good government. No, we still have a bad government. It's just Donald Trump has taken the most important position in the government, but now the deep state is rebelling against this foreign entity which has invaded their domain, and they want to get rid of him. You know, in the past, when Republicans lost an election, they said, well, we'll try again in 4 years. For the deep state, for the Democrats...
That's right. America is coming back into our government, and the globalists are pissed.
Yeah, they're freaking out. And so they had no intention of waiting 4 years to get rid of Trump. They plan to do it immediately. The Daily Mail said, hey, Obama, his sole goal is to remove Donald Trump from office, not 4 years from now, but as quickly as possible. And that's what the deep state is trying to do.
And that's called a coup. I mean, I'm not a guy that calls for violence, but at some point, Pieczenik used to call for uprisings 5 years ago. I say, don't do that. We're going to do an info war. But if we have a president, he has good approval, he's doing good things, they're lying about him trying to kill him. At some point, Dr. Pieczenik, just briefly, at some point, when do we, I mean, obviously we're winning the info war now, but they keep calling for violence. Is there any teeth in that?
No, the reason we don't need violence at this particular point in time is because we are exceedingly good. We, in the military and the civilian intelligence community, we're very good at psychological warfare, which is what you saw. Coup, counter coup, and once again, this Vault 7, the dump.
Sure. Back to Michael real quick, because I interrupted. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, everything you guys are saying is true. We've got this struggle within the government. And Donald Trump, you know, he got elected and he went to work right away trying to do the things he was elected to do. But he needs to realize that Trump is not going to last long unless he wins this battle against the deep state. Because the deep state, they have the initiative right now. They're just going to keep lobbing grenades and scandals at Trump.
I agree, but isn't this a giant counterstrike with this Vault 7?
Yeah, and I'm so thankful for that, because now we're getting a little light on the CIA and NSA, because up till now they've had the initiative because no light was being shed on them, so they could just anonymously do their work and lob grenades.
Sure, but I mean, Trump is the president now, has stuff that will completely destroy them if he wants. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, the problem is there's just not one or two individuals. You're talking about thousands of individuals spread throughout the government, the deep state, that need to be rooted out. So Donald, and you know, unfortunately, he just can't go in and shut down the NSA or the CIA, you know, without the help of Congress. And so, you know, there needs to be mass firings. He needs a clean house, because until he gets rid of these people, he's going to be dealing with it the entire time he's in the White House. And eventually, they're going to find something on him that's going to stick. So Donald Trump needs to make this his top priority. And I'm so thankful that he's upset that they were wiretapping him, that they're listening to his calls, because finally now something may be done about all this unconstitutional surveillance.
I agree, because that's one thing Trump was wrong on, was going along with surveillance. And I said, wait till he realizes they've been surveilling him like 3 months ago. And it was like biblical, because now Trump's all pissed, realizing, because he's thinking, we use this against like Al-Qaeda or Russia or China. No, the real power is here domestically by criminal groups. It's got to be curtailed. Dr. Pieczenik?
The key here, let me go at, it's not that he's going to weed out everybody. I appreciate what the gentleman said. The reality is what's happening is the Christian majority of this country is moving forward. It has consumed the notion of patriotism. Within Trump's administration, we were already prepared through General Mattis, General Kelly, McMaster, Flynn, and other generals. We knew exactly what to expect. The issue at hand is no longer that you want to eliminate your enemy. You want to expose them, as Vault 7 is doing. You want to prosecute them, go through a due process.
You want to fully discredit the ideology, not make them martyrs.
Correct. Not only the ideology, but you want to impugn the integrity of the legislatures who were looking over this, particularly Dianne Feinstein, particularly Wyden, particularly all of the Republicans, McCain and Lindsey Graham and Schumer, all of those who were involved in overseeing the intelligence. This is far more important to us than eliminating anyone. But that's gone. There will be no violence. The other issue at hand, and this is what Michael can address, is that Trump has brought in Mnuchin. As I said before, Mnuchin's job is to realign the currencies of the United States, which is at too great a height right now, with the other currencies of the world, so that we can export at a favorable rate for ourselves.
That's right. That'll turn our economy on like nothing else.
Well, he's going to turn it on, but at the same time, he has to work with international currencies. In order for us not to be the supreme currency, which it is, we have to lower our rates so that we can compete with the French, the Japanese, the Mexicans. What we're doing now, instead of going into multilateral relationships, we're going to bilateral. So Mexico has a favorable outlook now because Wilbur Ross, the head of commerce who understands restructuring, said, look, we're going to give Mexico a very favorable rate on the pesos, but we're going to do business with them.
And let's be clear. And then the media spins it that Trump hates Mexicans when he's actually trying to lift everybody up.
No, he doesn't hate anybody. All he wants to do is do business, and it's apolitical in that way. He's going to do business with Canada. We've realigned our currencies according to the Canadian dollar. We're going to do business with England. We're going to realign our currency.
In fact, I was reading all that. The media spins it. Mexico ought to literally be kissing his butt right now. He's actually trying to, like, equalize.
The media doesn't understand any of this. Alan, you're way beyond what's happening here. The alternative media has gone way beyond anything in the media. You can't expect...
Well, I'm not bragging, but let's say this. What's it like for Shiner and then you, Dr. Pieczenik? Everything you cover, Michael, everything Pieczenik covers, what Drudge covers, what WorldNet Daily covers, now suddenly you watch Fox and CNN, they're being forced to use the terms Senator Rand Paul just called, wants to come on. I mean, that's no big deal. He calls sometimes. But it's like they are starting to realize we've been dead on. This is an amazing moment. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, it's very true. And you hear terms like globalist in the mainstream media versus nationalists, which is what they call people like us that don't want the globalist system. And so that's come to the forefront. All these things are coming to the forefront, which is a wonderful thing. But Trump is at a very dangerous time because there's this deep state war within the government, but then outside the government, people, there's not going to be any violence on the right, as your guest mentioned, but on the left, they're becoming violent. There's calls for violence. In fact, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch just made a video. I don't know if you guys have seen it, where she said, hey, there were blood in the streets in the past, and we're going to have to do it again. People are going to have to die. This woman was just very recently the Attorney General of the United States.
Oh, I know. And by the way, they're in the news saying I'm calling for violence. I'm not. I'm saying they're trying to get violent. They're tasering people. They're beating them just this weekend all over the country, beating up women. I'm saying, how long do we put up with their crap? But I get it. I think we're winning by letting them, like Gandhi did, or Martin Luther King, beat us up and show they're the scum.
Well, basically, I agree with Michael, but what's really happening is University of Vermont, which is a liberal school, but nevertheless, they don't want to admit that they provide language studies for the CIA. In other words, they better get their act together before we stop funding University of Vermont and their nonsensical behavior, because they know they receive an incredible amount of dollars, as does the University of Berkeley. What's happening is you're getting the exposure points of the left, but it's 60 years too late. In other words, these kids who are not studying, they're not doing anything, have never served, will never serve our government, are going out and protesting. Is this the equivalent of the protests in the 1960s with Abby Hoffman, where people were killed? No. Is this, in fact, just an eruption of a bunch of entitled little babies and the left wing and all? Yes. What we have to be serious about is to address Dianne Feinstein, get her out. Nancy Pelosi, out. Mark Rubio, out. All of these people, Susan Collins, out. We don't need violence for this. We are way beyond that now. The left is lost. They have no idea what to do. They're trying to mimic what you did, what I do, what others have done, and it's lost.
They're calling themselves the resistance, when the entire dirty power structure is trying to prop them up. And it's crazy. In fact, they've got these new white papers out saying Jones hijacked the liberal movement that was against the WTO. No, just because I'm a patriot or more right-wing, which I'm not even right-wing, I'm a patriot, it doesn't mean that I don't want national sovereignty. It's the left pushing for globalism and corporate control outside of free market. They're the tyrants. I mean, what's going to happen, Dr. Pieczenik, as a psychiatrist, or just as a citizen studying this, when the leftist crybabies, I mean, they're literally crybabies, finally find out that they were part of the establishment?
Well, not only are they part of the establishment, they are the nurtured little orphans of the establishment.
Yeah, the useful idiots.
The word, but they're finished. The real issue is even the corporations who thought that they could get away from a Trump made a very big mistake. For example, Caterpillar, a major American company, did an inversion, what we call a financial inversion in Switzerland, and refused to pay billions of dollars in taxes. Trump picked it up. Our administration picked it up very quickly, and then the IRS came in on Caterpillar to say, guys, you've had falsified accounting. Now you will pay billions of dollars, and you will come into criminal action. That's what's happening at a much greater level. The left doesn't understand that, not even the right. But when Caterpillar tries to avoid paying taxes by doing a stupid inversion into Switzerland, which is a haven for corrupt money, then you know you've got corporations.
Yeah, the simple Trump rule is this. We're open for business. We have low taxes, low regulations. You're not going to just suck off the country and get laws passed that screw us when you're going to end up hurting the population. We're going to have give and take, two-way streets.
That's correct. But that reasonableness is not really understood by the left at point. The corporations are still trying like little babies to get away, and they're trying to act out. When a Trump,
sure, to get 100% profit, even though it burns down the world.
Well, the point is they've gotten away literally not with murder, but in some cases with murder. But this time around, when we brought in all the Goldman Sachs boys, all the economic experts, They finally.
Hold on, Doc. I'm going to let you have 2 minutes to finish up on the other side where this is going. Then I'm going to give Snyder about 5 minutes. We cut into his time today. And then Rand Paul, Senator, wants to come on with some big news. He's going to be joining us. Then we've got other folks coming with breaking news. We'll be back. Like Stephen Bannon says, all the outside globalist constructs will be burned down. This is a real revolution against tyranny you're seeing. 21st century war. Dr. Steve Pieczenik is going to finish up, stevepieczenik.com. Former spy chief, hooked into everything. Everything he's talked about has really come true. He's been one of the most accurate guests we've had in decades. 22 years now on air. It's been 22 years as of April. I forgot to announce that on air. I keep saying 21 years. I get older and older here. 43 years old now, but on air since I was 21. And then, of course, we have Michael Snyder, great brain on this. I'm going to give him about 5 minutes in a moment to finish up his comments. But the media's not going to tell you, though they're starting to, how big a deal this latest data dump is. It's exposing the CIA, the deep state, how it's been used to blackmail Congress, try to set up Trump. It's all coming out. And yes, this is the counterstrike. I don't even know if the president knew about this, but he was told you're being wiretapped by the agencies. He knew it was accurate. And so now this is just backing it all up. And there's even more, I'm told. So, Dr. Pieczenik, let me ask you this. Other points you want to make, but then how does the establishment that's left, because they're so damn delusional and arrogant, how do they counterstrike? Or is the delusion I see, is the bravado and the hubris fake? Is all this chutzpah fake or is it real? And how do you, as a guy that predicted this 6-7 years ago on the air, how does all this lay out? How do you see the breaks happening?
Happen. This is the third coup and counter coup that we have been involved with. I told you weeks ago we would do this, we would do it again. Basically, what's happening is the deep state, or as you call it, the CIA and others, will be cleaned out. Pompeo's job is to clean them out. Mattis's job is to clean it out. We will clean out the 16 different intelligence organizations. But what we need, and we're fortunate to have Dr. Rand Paul. I have to thank Dr. Rand Paul and his father, Ron Paul, for having stood up against the neocons who tried to come back into the administration, particularly the worst and the scum of them all, Elliot Abrams and John Bolton. If it wasn't for Dr. Rand Paul, we would still have a huge influx of neocons. But he stood up, he wrote an incredible, accurate letter, and he defied the...
And he led the fight exposing how Obama and the neocons were backing al-Qaeda in Syria. He was the leader of that. I mean, he's really done a great job.
Well, yes, and I think the audience should really appreciate what Dr. Rand Paul has done as a singleton, literally working alone and really going up against Paul Ryan, going up against the weak-kneed Republicans, and he stood for what we wanted, which was the revolution, peaceful, at the same time making sure we clean out every piece of flotsam and jetsam that the Obama, the Bush administration had. So he becomes important. Other congressmen and senators will become important. But again, I'm very proud that he's a physician, he's a great ophthalmologist, and he's a great American. I want to thank you, your audience, and your guests for having been.
I want to thank you and everybody that's awake here, but I mean, it's a big time. How do they counterstrike then? I mean, if this is a football game or a war, how are we doing?
We basically won it. I'm going to say, when we are the victors, let us be a little bit gracious and back off and continue to do what we do quietly. We don't have to gloat. We don't have to say anything. They will act out like children in a pamper.
In fact, Doctor, I almost, this morning, I meant to come on air and say, we have won. It may take them a while to figure it out, but this, I can feel it. There's still a lot of fights to come. They can still try to kill the president, but even though they do that, it turns them into a martyr. I've looked down every avenue they've got. I don't see any way they can reconstitute themselves.
They're finished. When you have 79-year-old Pelosi and 82-year Dianne Feinstein, you're already in the cemetery. The left is in the cemetery. All we've done is to put flowers on their graves and walk away. You need not say anything else.
By the way, have you seen the footage where they think Russia attacked Korea? They don't say North or South. They think that Bush is still in office.
And that's the kind of stupidity you'll have when you have affirmative action. We had a president on affirmative action, Obama. He was a disaster. We cleaned out his record in 7 days. That's it. No more affirmative action. What we need is our entrepreneurial skills, and may the best win. And that's what America's about. Thank you very much, and thank your audience, and thank Dr. Rand Paul.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Pieczenik.
My pleasure.